Welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. With me is managing editor of the ever popular bi-monthly magazine PressBox and the website PressBoxOnline.com. He is Luke Jackson, and if he looks tan, that's because he just got back from his week at the beach. And somebody who's always tan now because he lives in Bradenton, Florida, is the ever popular Ross Grimsley, the old left-hander, as we call him. Guys, how you doing?
Good, buddy. All good.
All right. Let me just tell you that in addition to our friends at the Costas Inn that sponsor all things having to do with my Zooms, we are also brought to you by AJ Michaels. That's right, expert and award-winning AJ Michaels Heating, AC, Plumbing, and Home Performance will improve your home's energy efficiency and comfort levels. The AC season is upon us, and seriously, it's about to get very hot in Baltimore. It's going to be near 100 degrees by midweek and heading toward the weekend, and who knows how long that can hang in there. The AC season is coming up, and it's here. New rebates and discounts are available. More at ajmichaels.com. Guys, I thought we'd assemble today. Since we last talked, the Orioles and Mike Elias made one nifty little trade. They picked up a right-handed pitcher named Shintaro Fujinami from the Oakland A's, and his claim to fame is that he was a high school rival of Shohei Ohtani. I have a feeling Ohtani's ended up with a little bit better career than Shintaro has. But the A's brought him in on a $3.25 million contract this year. Got a reputation he throws as hard as Felix Bautista, doesn't control it nearly as well. Ross, are you familiar with Fujinami at all?
Just watching him pitch the other night, it looked like he got a pretty good arm. And like you said, he struggled command-wise, but when he did have command, it was around, he got a couple of strikeouts. He's got a pretty good kind of a split change, I believe it you could refer to it as. But he, when he's around the plate, he's very effective, and I think that's what the O's front office saw in him. He throws strikes, and they can figure out, pull some of that magic off, and get him to do that. He could help the bullpen out, which would be a big help.
Let me throw one other question to you, Ross. This is the key question for me. Is you look at his last 16 games with the A's, they were all in relief. And I think he allowed like 3 earned runs in 16 innings, struck out 18 guys. I think he walked 6 guys, and his whip was like at 1, and his ERA was, I think, under 1 or just above 1. But there's a big difference when you're pitching for a team that's 50 games below 500, and you might be pitching one night in the 4th inning for an inning. The next day he might use you in the 6th inning. Then he's in, and the games don't mean anything. They're like a blur. Now all of a sudden he's with the Orioles, and he's down there in Tampa. Rabid fans at the game, both sides, and they're chirping, they're yelling. The energy level's high. Is it easy to plug yourself into that, or can it cause like a different mindset where pressure suddenly is on you because you're pitching in games that mean something?
Yeah, I've had it go the other way when I went from a good team to a bad team. So that was kind of a shock in itself. But
right,
as a professional player, you can put that stuff out of your mind because you're trying. Obviously to do the best you can. And, a thing like that, you're still going to go out and give the best effort you can, regardless of your team's 20 games up or 20 games down. But, going from last place like Oakland.
They're close to 50 games
down. Oh,
yeah,
really? But going, from Oakland to Baltimore, that's got to be, and that can put a little bit more pressure on you, and you might concentrate more, but, he did show the ability when he's around the plate that he can be effective. I mean, be very effective. And I think they're kind of hoping that, and maybe they can find something to help him improve his command. But yeah, it's got to be, he's got to have a big smile on his face coming from from there to the O's.
Well, somebody who's got a big smile on her face is Luke Jackson. What were you laughing at, Luke?
Oh no, just something Ross said. Oh, it just made me laugh. But anyway, yeah, I totally agree with.
It wasn't tallywhack. I didn't say that.
But I totally agree with what Ross has say. You keep throwing them out there, whether they're big spots or not, and you like Brandon Hyde said the other day, you trust the stuff, and now we'll see where it goes. It seems like he's going to still be throwing them out there in big spots, and they may very well need him in a big spot tonight because they aren't going to have Cano and they ain't going to have
Yep.
tonight. So
Right.
bomb it. So
let
they
me
may
ask
very
you
well
this.
need him.
So let me ask you, Luke, and again, what are we, a week away from the deadline? The deadline is 4:00 on August 1st. Is Fujinami enough help for the bullpen, or are you like me thinking he's got to land another important arm?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you wrote today, and readers can check that out on pressboxonline.com. I think Fujinami is a worthwhile project. I think it's a worthwhile dart throw, but I totally agree with your assessment that a reliever who's been through the postseason wars before would be perfect. And I think David Robertson, that type of reliever, a guy who's closed for a number of different teams in postseason play, get left and right handers out who can go 3 and 4, who can go 5 and 7, who can give Bautista a blow in the 9th inning if he needs one. I think someone like that, a battle tested veteran arm, reliable.
That's an interesting name.
I think someone like that would be a perfect fit, and that what that would also do is allow Brandon to deploy Cano a little earlier in the game.
Yeah.
Like 6th and 7th inning rather than the 7th and 8th. So I think something like that would be a perfect fit for the Orioles. And I think it would be so cost prohibitive that they couldn't do it.
Ross, you like that name, David Robertson?
Yeah. Also, I think Miami has some guys that are interesting. I think starters, and they are. You'll have a couple years of control over. There's 4 of them down there, I think. Lopez, Rogers, Cabrera, and Luzardo, I believe.
Luzardo.
And,
Yeah.
those guys, we got 2 years if you was to get one of those guys. So I think it's going to come down. One of the things,
So wait a minute. Let me just interrupt you for 1 second.
Yeah.
We were talking, Luke and I, about relievers. Are
Right.
you of the same opinion that I am with what they currently have in Gibson, Kramer, Bradish, Wells, and Grayson and Irvin, that they still need another starting arm with what's going on with apparently Wells? Looks like he's fatigued somewhat now, so are you of the opinion they need a starting pitcher as well?
No, well, I was saying that is something out there that they can consider.
Yeah.
Now the thing with the bullpen, we saw what happened last year with the bullpen. They got tired toward the end of the year. They've got the 12th most innings in the major leagues right now. So
Right.
that's a concern right there, because we saw what happened. The starters ERA is going down. This month, the earned average for the relievers is down from the previous 2 months. But we see the guys get tired. Yes, a bullpen or 2 arms would be really good. I think they signed the left-hander McFarland recently. So that's I think the more guys that you can get to hopefully, you hate to have a tryout, but you need, this team's in first place by a couple games. They're a really good team. They play well against the better teams. My question is, how serious is the Oriole front office about getting help to get them to win the World Series? You might as well, because they've already shown that these guys are playing as well as anybody. When they play the game right, they hustle. We saw Tampa Bay, some of the stuff that they did, and with minus the pitching that they don't have, that they're going to get some back possibly. But I think a bullpen or 2 guy would really help out considerably. But then again, you can get a starter, I mean, that might be something that you could pull off too.
Ross, when you're a general manager, and I know you haven't been a general manager, but you've consulted and assisted GMs with pennant-winning teams, World Series winning teams with the Giants. Do you sit there and look at a player like Gunnar Henderson on July 24th and say, this guy's going to be even so much better 30 days from now, that he really single-handedly might take us close enough if I inch forward a couple other areas?
He's been fantastic. I mean, seems like anywhere you put him, third or short, he's really made some tremendous plays. He's a smart, most of the guys on the young players coming up have really shown they know how to play the game. They're busting their butts every day, running the bases, doing things. Henderson has been fantastic. Some of the plays he made during that series were really, I was fortunate enough to see all the games and the Dodger games as well. But he was really outstanding, making plays, and he's going to get better, which is amazing, But he is really something else. But in defense, I mean, he just does everything so well. And I think a lot of Oriole players that they're bringing up are doing that, which is really a bonus.
Luke, with the Mullins injury, I thought we'd start to see Colton Cowser with a little bit more regularity. It seems that Brandon is going the other way and is really locked on the veteran Aaron Hicks getting most of the playing time. Does that sit well with you?
I think it's fine for now. I think he's trying to ease in Westberg with some favorable matchups against left-handers, and I think he's trying to ease in Cowser with favorable matchups against right-handers. I don't think where they are in their careers at this point that they need to absolutely be playing every day. I don't think that's the case for those guys. I think it's fine.
The issue isn't whether they play every day. Is Hicks going to wear down a little bit?
I think that's
the guy that's had severe injury concerns the last 3 years.
Yeah,
I think Brandon's playing him. Brandon is playing him like he's a young pup.
Yeah, I think that you're absolutely right to be concerned about that. And that brings up another point. Do you look for some outfield help at the deadline with Mullins' timetable being a little uncertain?
Murky, yeah.
Murky was probably the best way to put it because he aggravated the groin injury. Does that at this point mean that the groin at some point is going to have to be fixed? We don't know. And so I know Mullins said that he wants to come back as soon as he can. He's confident that he can play this year, but we don't know. As best we know, he hasn't run yet, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that they'll have to look into as well, is an outfielder on their shopping list a week from today. So we'll see.
All right. When you take a gander at the whole picture, Ross, have you thought of any other interesting trades, not necessarily just Oriole trades? Do you see, like, for example, do you see ultimately Artie Moreno pulling the trigger and trading Shohei Ohtani?
You would think him being a free agent, and depending on where Angels are 2 games out of a playoff spot or out of first place. I forget which one it is. They're 2 games out of the division lead.
No, they're 2 games. They're 2 games out of wild card, the last wild card.
Whichever, the next. Well, they may have to do something before that, but seeing what happens the next few games, because I think they're playing Detroit, they're playing Toronto, if I'm not mistaken.
Detroit for 3 and then Toronto for 3.
But I mean, you look at it, somebody's going to give them a haul. If you don't, you're going to just get a draft pick,
right?
Which is, I mean, you got to get more. And the Angels have really, have underachieved for years. So I got to believe that somebody's going to put together something.
They should have hired you a long time ago, Ross, the Angels.
yeah, right.
You're the pitching coach of the world champion San Francisco Giants.
Well, I was an instructor.
You were an instructor in the minor leagues, but you brought up all those guys like Lincecum. Matt Cain.
He never pitched very much in the minor leagues, but Bumgarner, Kane, and those guys. I mean, we had a great group of people there. But with the trade Ohtani, even Trout, who knows? They can trade both those guys and probably get some really quality players. So that you gotta look at that. That's going to be interesting to see what happens there.
Luke, you looking at anything? First of all, you feel free to jump in on that topic about Ohtani, whether you think he'll get dealt or not. But any other teams you say, hey, I mean, I think we'd all agree, not to get off on another point, that the Dodgers are really surprising people. And I think they'll make a strong bid to get a really good pitcher. I think Giolito is a real possibility for them.
Lucas Giolito is exactly the type of pitcher that the Dodgers would go after at the deadline. And for me, the Dodgers are a strong deadline away from being right there with the Braves. There's no team coming out of the break that has played better. And it's been their offense. They've just been pounding teams. Orioles got a little bit of that in Baltimore. The Mets got a little bit of that in New York, and the Rangers got a lot of that this weekend. So, and Brandon Hyde said it in one of his post-game pressers last week. They just have so many veteran at bats throughout that lineup, and they're so experienced. And you look up in the fourth inning, and your starter's got like 81 pitches because of how those veteran bats grind out those games. So they've been one of the best offensive teams in the league of late. I think they're 19th in ERA among starters. And so to your point, I think getting Clayton Kershaw back will be a big deal for them. Getting Julio Urias right will be a big deal for them because he hasn't been great this year. Not a great contract year for him. But yes, a Lucas Giolito type would make a heck of a lot of sense for the Dodgers. Everyone was a little down on the Dodgers this offseason because it seemed like they kept their powder dry for a run at Ohtani this coming offseason. But I mean, I look at you, I think you had them third in your power rankings. That seemed completely fair to me. Seems like they've got as good a chance as anybody else to go to the World Series. So the Dodgers there again every year.
I have to do a mea culpa though. I had the Dodgers, I think, not even in the top 20 starting the season. And they've gradually crept up, and I'm big enough to admit when I'm wrong because I've got so much experience at it that I've got them in the top three now. You learn from it. That's exactly right. Hey, we're going to talk a little bit more about the trade deadline, but first I got to tell you about a place that you never have a deadline for. That's the Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. It is fully engaged in crab season right now. If you want to plan on having crabs, the idea of going into a crab house, now maybe you have a small local one in your neighborhood or something that you can do this, but a big restaurant like the Costas Inn, you got to plan and call ahead and reserve your crabs, both the price point and the number of crabs you want. 4100 North Point Boulevard. They've only been there for about 50 years. The Costas family, Costas Triantafilos family, fantastic people, a homey atmosphere. They make you feel at home, very laid back, casual. Check it out, the Costas Inn. And by the way, if you like to get carry out and you're not comfortable in a restaurant, go to costasinn.com. You can order your food online, pay for it online, and not even get out of your car when you pick it up at 4100 North Point Boulevard. That's the Costas Inn. Now we return to talking baseball. And Ross, your good friend Shane Turner over there in San Francisco, might that be a possible landing spot when I assess who could really make the deal for Shohei Ohtani and give up enough that Moreno might pull the trigger? I come up with two teams. That's the San Francisco Giants and your old skipper down there in Texas, the Texas Rangers. What do you think?
We talked about that earlier, I think a little bit a week ago or so about possibly Ohtani ended up with the Giants because they have the money. They have some players that they could maybe swing a deal with, but that's a perfect spot for him, I would think, and something that they could afford to do. So
Yeah, I think they'd be confident that anybody that moves to San Francisco from Orange County is going to fall in love with San Francisco, and the team is going to be committed to winning. I think they'd be confident enough to give up a package and not even get the deal done until they get him in their building.
He'd love pitching there. I know that. And then at right field, McCovey Cove, he would love that too. So
he'd love to hit. He'd love to hit.
They got some bonuses. They got some bonuses there for him. So and the fact that they could probably work out a contract. So that would be I would think that would be a perfect spot for him.
Luke, a different team with a different issue is the New York Mets. Do you see them unloading? First of all, would anybody really want Max Scherzer right now?
I think the Scherzer and Verlander deals are too complicated to get done ahead of the deadline with so little time left, just because there's so much money involved. The Mets would have to fork over so much money to make those deals happen that I just don't think that it's feasible at this stage. And I think one of those guys has a no trade clause, if not both of them. So I don't see either of those two guys going anywhere. The good news for the Mets is that it's the last year of the deals for both of them next year. So it's not like super long-term money. It's just a lot of money right now. I see the Mets moving along. Like I said before, David Robertson, I see him being very attractive. Maybe a Brooks Raley, left-handed receiver, being attractive at the deadline. Tommy Pham, perhaps, who has
the Phillies are very interested in Pham.
Pham has always hit left-handers throughout his career. He's hit everyone this year. He's only making $6 million this year, so he's due about $2 million for the rest of the year. So that's not an issue for anybody. So those are the kind of moves that I anticipate. Maybe Mark Canha as well. Those are the kind of moves I anticipate the Mets making. Not major moves, bit moves to bring in a little bit of talent. Maybe kick in some money on the salaries, get a little better prospect back. That's what I anticipate for the Mets. I don't anticipate any earth-shattering moves from them.
What about the Phillies? You see Ross, you see the Phillies being active? Dave Dombrowski usually is.
Oh, they got somebody on the horizon looking at. So yeah, you can expect them to pull something off. What could be, it seems like everybody's looking for obviously pitching again. Bullpen help. Did I see Atlanta picked up a couple of pitchers?
They picked up two relief pitchers today. They picked up Hearn. What's his first name? Taylor Hearn.
Taylor Hearn
from the Texas Rangers, who had spent more of this season at AAA, but he's a useful pitcher, left-hander. And they picked up Pierce Johnson, a right-hander from the Rockies, who had signed him, I think, as a free agent from San Diego, where he had pitched pretty well for San Diego, Luke, hadn't he, for about 3 years?
Yes, and then he went to Colorado and he didn't pitch so well.
Yeah.
So
not many guys do. Not there.
And so it's just
would be a fun place.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's making a little dart throw there, seeing that if they can get him back to his San Diego form, and if they can, that'll be a nice move for them.
Yeah.
Before we leave today, because we won't be together until, when's the trade deadline? Is it next Monday or Tuesday, Luke?
It's next Tuesday, August 1st.
August 1st. Okay. So we'll be together next Monday. Do you expect by this time next Monday, the Orioles will have made a trade? And if so, what type of deal? Luke, let's ask you first.
Boy, the challenge is that there are so many teams on the fence right now, like the Angels, who this next 7 to 8 days will really help really help give them a gauge of what they're going to do, whether they're going to buy or sell. Seattle is another team like that.
Sure.
So, and I think that a lot of these teams on the borderline right now, it's going to be 24, 48 hours before the deadline. It's going to take that long before they say, we're open for business or whatever. So
right.
I'm going to say no, just because I think the vast majority of the meaningful activity is going to be like 24 hours before.
Oh, okay. So you're not saying they won't make a deal by the
Right, I just
deadline.
think
You
it's going
by
to be-
next Monday at
yes.
4. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you in favor of us doing our Zoom next week on Tuesday at 4?
Yeah, that might make sense, honestly.
Okay. Ross, you think so?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
No,
You're not out on the golf course.
Oh, not on, I can arrange it whenever you want to do it.
You
It's
start
not a
early,
problem.
don't you? You start golfing early.
It doesn't matter. Now, we play at
Let's-
2:00 in the afternoon, so. it
Let's
doesn't matter.
tentatively say that, guys. We'll do it next Tuesday at 4:00 because then we'll know all the
Right.
deals will be trickling in. I love
Right.
how the deadline's at 4 and about 5:15 they announce, well, the Braves picked up this guy, and oh, wait a minute, the Orioles picked
Yeah.
up this guy, so.
Remember
All
the
right.
Orioles picked up like Brett Phillips at like 418 last year or something.
Right. And that was really a great deal. That was a big deal.
I mean, big time deal.
They made 2 big moves last year. They picked up Aguilar and Brett Phillips. Those were major.
Aguilar. Oh, Aguilar. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they picked up Jesus Aguilar.
Okay.
He might have come before the September 1st deadline or something like that. I don't know how. I don't remember how we got Aguilar. Hey, the Thursday Zoom this week has been moved to Wednesday. Rob Ambrose, Gary Stein, and I will talk with Rob Ambrose about life after coaching the Towson University Tigers for about 12 years over there, Luke?
I think it was 12 years and 11 seasons because
Yeah.
there was no 2020 season.
Yeah. So we'll talk to Rob. He's an old friend and we'll find out what's cooking for him. And it'll be interesting to see how Pete Shinnick does, who took over. I have a feeling he's going to be very successful over there at Towson.
I hope you're right.
I think he's a very meticulous coach, and I got a feeling he's going to do well. For Ross Grimsley and Luke Jackson, I'm Stan the Fan Charles. O's play the Phillies tonight. It's Kramer versus Sanchez. It starts at 6:40 tonight, 6:40 tomorrow night, 6:00 on Wednesday. And then the Orioles will have the day off on Thursday before coming home for a brief 3-game stand against the New York Yankees. That's it for us. We'll talk to you down the road. Bye.